Hello there. You're listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and I am Kat Hobson, your host. I am doing something that is a lot different from what I normally do, and we will always go back to having our guests on. But, I have been with Fate Magazine now for, hello, Lori. I have been with Fate Magazine now for 5 years or so. Um, since 2018, actually. This is the information package or that came from my very first UFO conference representing Fate Magazine. And that's where I got to meet Phyllis Scaldi, who is my editor. And it's also where I got to meet Rosemary Gully. And the two of them together, runaway horse thieves. I'm not kidding. Brilliant women, funny women, people who had all the good times. And I am so fortunate to be affiliated with Fate Magazine. And, I just thought that tonight, I've been planning to do this. Carl and I had talked about it, and he's like, you should really do that. I just thought that I would do a show about the magazine because if you're not subscribing, you don't even know what you're missing, right? So I thought that I would just kind of, besides being the public face of the magazine, share some of the details about the magazine. It's been in publication since 1948. It is absolutely the longest running paranormal magazine, really. It falls into so many genres, but it is a paranormal publication because none of us are normal. And if Phyllis is listening, she knows that's right. But, I am always amazed. It's not just the magazines. Although they are fantastic, we also have Species Link. We're not publishing it right now, but it's like a regular, large magazine format. And it's pretty cool too. And I have my glasses on because I'm going to have to read a lot. But Phyllis is the publisher. And this particular edition is relevant to water. And it includes all kinds of information relevant to, is it sentient? Does it feel things? Is it, there's just all kinds of interesting things. There's also a section in here about the Animal Wisdom Tarot relevant to animal species. I'm terrible at this. But here you have otters. I could get that closer, right? You have otters. You have nautilus and penguins. This is probably one of the more interesting decisions that Phyllis made to publish this because it's a fantastic concept. And she is planning to bring that back. I'm not sure how soon that will happen because she is in North Carolina and is directly affected by the floods that happened there. And if you see anybody from FEMA, kick them in the shin. But anyway, Stevie Tombstone, who does our technical work, and he is actually working on my website for Fate Magazine Radio, is literally homeless right now. He is couch surfing. He is a musician, a brilliant musician. He's also a really great tech guy. But when he left the mountain, it was after his ancestral home was flooded and disappeared. It was taken away. And so he had a gig in Texas. So, hey, Tom McNicholas. But he left his truck with a neighbor so that they could get water. He took his dog and his laptop and a duffel bag and went to a gig in Texas. And he is now in upstate New York. He is traveling everywhere because he is a working musician. He's fantastic. Check him out, Stevie Tombstone. But he is just really brilliant. But he is who let me know how to get things up there if we could, and things of that nature. But if you could still please keep your prayers going for that region. They're so hurt. The whole region is just so devastated. And I know that Biltmore opened, and Asheville is like, we're a tourist town. Let's not be saying that we're closed. But the devastation up in those mountains is astonishing. And you can watch videos. I saw a video from someone not far from where Phyllis lives that was of a creek that had turned into a roaring river. And the caption, I think, was nature destroying nature. And that's what happened. And I am not necessarily a conspiracy theorist, but there are a lot of them out there who have some pretty strong ideas. Our government's already acknowledged TARP. And when storms get out over the jet stream, which has cooler water, and they should slow down or dissipate, and they don't, it's kind of weird. But enough about that, right? Now, specs. So, I just wanted to let you know the things that are available on Fate. Terrible. But you've got our e-issues, and that's a great subscription, because even if we're having trouble with a printer, a physical person printing, then if they go down, we can still get our e-issues out. And let me tell you, they're amazing. I love getting both. And if you see me at a convention, I have Fates with me, so I share those. So please feel free. The large issues that are this size, you don't have to get just the digest size. If you have vision issues or anything of that nature, you can get the large editions. And personally, I'm getting to that point. And it's okay, because, glasses. But it's one of those things that if you have a vision impairment, you can probably get hooked up with that. And it seems to work well for me. Now, we have posters. This is probably the only time you'll see me touch this edition, and Phyllis laughs because I am so snake phobic. But look at that. If you like snakes, this is beautiful. If you don't like snakes, it's horrifying. But, we have so many. This is personally one of my very favorites ever. And this is the Kraken edition. There's so many Kraken stories in here. And just to show you, we have a masthead, and as well as the contents. And I love that masthead because it says Kat Hobson, Fate Radio host. But anyway, I think this is beautiful. And we're going to share some of the stories in some of these. I will not bore you with reading the whole magazine, I promise. But then this one, I took this with me to the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. The reason? Because people there love to get tattoos. In fact, I found at most Paracons there is a tattoo artist working. And this, and where it says why tattoos, everybody asks me that. And I'm like, you'll have to read the magazine. I can't give away everything, right? You do need to read the magazine. So, there's all kinds of things that are available. I love that you can get posters of the covers, and I have so many that I love. This one has been through the mill. This is the last one. This is my personal copy, but because it got dog-eared, people checking it out, and it actually got scraped on. Look at the beauty of this cover. Don't you love it? The Mermaid Edition. And when you go in there, this one in particular has a great article. And thanks to Dave Considine, I was able to help a client that was having this problem. And it's when walls bleed. One of the girls in my power class was in a newer home. And she called me and she was like, I know what you do, but I need an investigation because my walls are bleeding. I was like, what? No, I don't think I'm who you need for that. But of course, I was who she needed for that. But I went ahead and I started reaching out to different people, to talk to contractors. I talked to um, other investigators that might have come across something like this. I put it out on Facebook. Can somebody help me with just this question? What would cause this? And I reached out. Dave Considine is a brilliant demonologist. He is a wonderful human. He's a nice man. And I called him and I was like, look, this person that owns this home is not a woo woo person. She's an RN. She's very cut and dry. Get to the facts. And she would not be coming up with something like this just randomly. I just can't imagine that being a thing with her. And he said, well, how old is her house? So I told him. He's like, it's the drywall. It's got to be the drywall. And apparently, if you ever come across this situation, then you need to know that too. I know a lot of investigators watch this show and a lot of team leads and whoever. But if you come across somebody who is having that problem, before you go and start salting and say, never hurts to sage and salt. But before you start getting them in a tizzy, you need to get information on the date the home was built. Talk if there's a contractor available that built it, then you can find out what kind of materials they used. I know that here in Birmingham, now this case was not in the subdivision this affected, but here in Birmingham, we had a beautiful multi-million-dollar home that had to be completely gutted because they had used a drywall that was not American, that had some pretty serious toxic issues. And those poor people had built the most beautiful home and they had to completely redo the interior. So you need to know what you're building your house with. But anyway, so my sister also had that experience in her condo when it was renovated. You can get in a lot of trouble if you're using products that you don't know about. And in this case, the humidity with that particular drywall made her walls bleed. I'm glad that's all it was because I didn't want to have to deal with it. So, not that I would not have, but I would not have on my own because I don't have the basic knowledge. I know how to cleanse. I know how to protect. I do not profess to be a demonologist. I don't have an interest in being a demonologist. I was a member of the Order of the Exorcist for some time. I probably am still on their rolls, but I don't like dealing with that. My energy draws things like that if I get in that environment because I'm a positive, right? And I just love everything. But I don't want to be involved in that kind of negativity because it tries to come home with me. And in one case, something did. So there you go. Once is enough. Not kidding. So, I talked about the different ways that this had started, and I just don't even, there's just so much information. Fate, obviously, being such an old magazine, has gotten a lot of history behind it. It's really something that it blows my mind because 1947, as we all know, well, maybe not all, but Kenneth Arnold was a private pilot and he was flying through the Sierra Nevadas. And I think he was still over California. And he radioed in. He was like, I just got passed by 7 craft. And I don't know what those are. He was a seasoned pilot. He was in his own plane. He was on his way home. There was no reason to doubt the validity of his statement. And his statement actually is why we call them flying saucers, because they were like, well, what do they look like? What is it? And he was like, well, they look like saucers with teacups. They look like saucers. And I never heard that he said they look like inverted saucers, but that's how they started being drawn, right? So anyway, I guess, well, the magazine started in 1948. Raymond Fuller is who created this magazine, and he was actually pretty cool. He was the editor of Amazing Stories, and Curtis Fuller also was a co-founder with him. So, yeah, I said that it's the longest running, but it is. It's the longest running continuously, hi April, continuously in publication paranormal magazine. And Tom McNicholas Insurance did cover it. The contractor's insurance covered it. But anyway, so the first issue was, I have to have glasses. I'm so sorry. I was so afraid that I would miss something with here. But the other topics in the first issue included vanished civilizations, synchronicity. Don't you love synchronicities? I do. And exotic religions, monsters and giants. I guess artifacts. And I'm really impressed because it was not too far off of this period that Eric von Däniken, as a youth in Sweden, was he was 17 when he started traveling the world. And this is off topic, but it's actually kind of tied into it, because Eric von Däniken in his village was precocious, as you can well imagine if you've ever met or even seen the man as himself in this period of his life. He is still precocious, and he is still so interesting and so interested. But one of the fathers at his school recognized him, and he gave him the Book of Enoch. And because he felt like he would be interested in that and could handle that. And they actually had a copy of it in the monastery. So that's what turned von Däniken on to world exploration. He just, at 17, he'd work as a waiter, save up his money, go to Peru, go back, work as a waiter, save up his money, go to Egypt. When he was talking about the Nazca Lines, he saw the Nazca Lines before humans, of this era were out there stomping around on it, trying to, invalidate them and all this other stuff. So he's really fun. If you ever get a chance to hear him lecture, take it, because there's no one like him and no one with those experiences. So anyway, but that was kind of in the same period. They were covering communication with spirits, which was not quite as taboo as it is now with some faiths, because I think everybody knew, right? So out of place artifacts, that's something that really fascinates me. I think that's my favorite thing, because if you have not had a lot of exploration in an area, and yet you're finding stuff, like if you were finding Tibetan prayer rugs in the deep of Africa, then something happened to create that being there. So that's fun to me. And fate actually, in a lot of ways, fate created the genre. And like there wasn't paranormal really before fate, as far as I know there are paralogical societies There were, started in England. We had one here that was based in New York. Dan Aykroyd's family was part of that. But it's really to come into the whole umbrella of paranormal started with the Fullers. And, we have contributing editors, we have contributing authors. I've been one. In fact, Rick McCollum and I have an article that's coming out in Fate relevant to our experience in Scotland. And I think probably Mikey and Lori are in that article too. But it's just that type of thing where like the mermaid issue, mermaids are real. When the walls bleed, animals have souls. And my other favorite topic, Nikola Tesla, because that was somebody also who had found keys that, unlike Von Däniken, Tesla was driven out of science, and he was, it's brilliant. I have a Tesla coil in my office, so I'm a big Tesla fan. And, I feel like Tesla was treated the way Musk would have been treated were he not so rich, because people still mock him. And especially right now, because they don't agree with his political choices. So now he's being demonized for that and, all this other stuff. And politics don't make you evil, I don't think. And I don't think that a business person like him, I don't know. But I think that when somebody is derided and their business threatened, I think back to Tesla. He threatened the powers that be with his ideas. And I think that's really tragic that he died the way that he did, and that we still don't have his research because it was taken. And we don't even know by whom. We probably have a really good idea. But this is one of my favorites. And you know why? Because my article on the Winchester House is in it. But not only that, look at this cover. Isn't it beautiful? And, it talks about angels, H.P. Lovecraft, one of my other favorite topics, the Anunnaki. And I just wanted to, I'm not going to read you my whole article, I promise. But, this is one of the things that Phyllis likes to do. And this is the From Your Editor page. Isn't that cool? And there's Phyllis. But this has, thank you. And because she had a pretty severe stroke. And this is the edition where she said, many thanks to all our Fate family for all the wonderful help from you after her stroke. And she realized that she had no choice but to get better with the outpouring of healing energy and financial support that came in from everyone. So, and she goes on to say, it looks like I'll be back to normal this summer. And she was. And, she is pretty funny because she lives with her animals. And she says, one night at home in bed recovering, I clearly heard a male discarnate voice on my left saying, we have to accelerate her healing. She has a lot of work to do. So again, thank you all. And it looks like Fate has many more years ahead. And, it's really fun because she was like talking about the Y Files. And apparently that's a podcast that she's found that she just loves. So that's something to go and check out. But, little things like these unusual laws around the world, like I'm sure you can read that right there, but I'll give you a highlight. In Wyoming, a weird law exists where you need a permit to photograph rabbits between the months of January and April. I don't think it's relevant to reproduction because they do that a lot. So, do chickens adhere to laws? In Quitman, Georgia, chickens are not allowed to cross the road on their own. But did they ask why they wanted to? Probably not, right? In Switzerland, there is a strict regulation of no flushing the toilets after 10 p.m. One must conclude their business before that time, right? Let's see. This one is hilarious. And it's in China. It is illegal for Tibetan monks to reincarnate without permission from the government. Not sure how they plan to enforce that law, she says. So, it's not all, there's a lot of woo. There's a lot of um, bizarre, fun things. But, you know, this is important because in Baltimore, Maryland, you could receive up to a $500 fine and even a year in jail if you were caught doing tarot, palm reading, or any type of fortune telling because it's illegal there. All those people probably go to New Orleans. I would. So anyway, I I just have to share this because of what we're based on, okay? But in 1995, Barra de Garcas, I don't know how to say that name. That's a town. Brazil passed a law setting aside 5 hectares of land for a UFO airport to cater to flying saucers being spotted in the area. The city has also sanctioned an annual ET Day. So sounds like that's not just a Roswell thing, right? But I just thought that was cool. Oh, I'm guilty of this. I would have gone to jail. In Sri Lanka, it is illegal to take a selfie with a Buddha statue. It's considered a sign of disrespect. As to take a selfie, you are turning your back on Buddha. I make sure to never turn my back on Buddha. So I would have been covered in that. And I'm going to read you this last one. I'm sorry, I love these. I think that you would too. In British Columbia, when the Bigfoot was first sighted during the 1800s, they created a law to protect the hairy creature. Anyone found to have shot and killed a Bigfoot will be fined $250,000. That's 1800s. Washington State, just below in the USA, has a similar law relevant to the cryptid. And I'm going to tell you, I have spoken with people who are part of the Olympic Project, and which is a Bigfoot research program there. None of them have told me that. Isn't that interesting, though? I mean, I just found out that where one of my cousins lives is the Bigfoot capital of Alabama. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I think that the fact that we can support another podcast, the Y Files, is pretty cool because I love learning too. And I follow a lot of different people in this business because their ideas are not always the same as mine. And their investigative techniques are not always the same as mine. And they have different skill sets. One of the people in chat's one of the more gifted people that I've had, even internet conversations with, April. And it's genetic in their family because she is Denise Pridemore's cousin, and they both have that gift. And I think that that's important because those are generational things. Those are those skills follow. So I think it's kind of fun, right? But I just think that it's important because, we have so many shows on this network. We have so many shows that are around everywhere. It's hard to be able to get the time to follow up with everybody, but I sure do try to because I like learning. And one of the things that I have found, Carl, who is producing me right now, Tom McNicholas is in the chat, Lori Dorsey's in the chat, Lori and I are investigation partners. We travel, we meet at places and investigate. That's how we got to do the Winchester House in California. One of our friends was talent for that event, Rick McCollum, and we flew out and met there and got a chance to investigate. And in fact, um, that experience is what is in this edition. So I'm I'm so fortunate because I can go to somebody, I can call Denise and say, there's something happening around me and I'm not sure what it is, but I need a little hand. And she can usually tell me what's going on. And I do that for other people that don't have any skill sets that they're aware of and try to help them to realize that they can develop that. And I think that one of the things that is so cool about Fate magazine is that they have been following and pushing and getting this information out. The stories are written by readers. The stories are experiential. So it makes it really cool that it's always been from the get-go. The idea was to have a digest that included, you know, contributing authors, but readers. The magazine is written by readers. And I think that's really important because I don't know, it's just too cool. And April has a question here that says, why do you think some of the knowledge of those things has been lost? It's so fascinating, it's hard to believe people didn't carry on the knowledge. Well, April, I think there's a lot of different reasons. I think probably a primary reason would be natural disasters in a period where people couldn't really recover from them. We've got that happening right now. Oh, I look like bunny ears. But we've got that happening right now with this hurricane. Helene, there's a whole region in North Carolina that is wiped out. Um, there's not so much help that's going in there that's not private sector based. Um, it was the storm that wasn't supposed to happen there. And I know that I believe they've reopened most of the Blue Ridge Parkway, but that is a beautiful, scenic, historic area. In fact, off of the Blue Ridge Parkway is where I do my spook lights research up outside of Cherokee. So that's a big deal. It's a it's a way it's a shorter way to get across to a more metropolitan area. And it's so historic. It's so historic. The knowledge base being lost is where people had stuff like this happen and there were no survivors. Yeah. Ah, that is crazy. And that is very close to where my friends are. She said that she used to live in Hendersonville in the Batcave area. And it is just crazy what happened there. It's tragic what happened there. But it's really where did the Egyptians go? Where did the people of the Sphinx era go? There's that population has been there for millennia. And yet nobody knows why the pyramids are set up the way they are. Everybody's like, oh, well, Orion. Well, that's all well and good, but Orion, the stars move. They're not always pointing to Orion. So it's just an interesting thing to me too. I've always tried to look into that, but through nature, through disease, through wars, through famine, populations disappear. And I don't read Sanskrit. So if I were to come across a Tibetan manuscript that detailed some of this stuff, if I didn't have my friend Geishla, I could not understand what that scroll was trying to tell me. The Dead Sea Scrolls that they found, they were hidden so well. And, they're just now trying to bring them out without them crumbling. And I don't think they're going to be very, good at doing that. In this period, We have issues with the government not trusting the populace. We have known that there were UFOs since 1947. No doubt. Kenneth Arnold was a credible witness. He was, I don't know if he was a professional pilot, but he was a trained pilot. He knew craft. He knew what he saw. He knew it wasn't anything that he recognized, and yet they blew him out of the water. They were gone. They just went right by. And nobody really took askance with what he said because of his credibility. And yet, here we are, 1947, okay? We are in 2024. We just have been having hearings where the government is allowing people to discuss these things. And it's so top secret that when Lou Elizondo came out, when Travis Taylor went to work at Skinwalker Ranch, nobody knew that they already knew this was real. Travis was part of ATIP with Lou Elizondo, the same agency. I don't know if they were, peers there, but it's a really hard thing to know this happened and then have your government tell you for almost a century that, no, you're crazy. The people that say this are crazy. There's no way this could be happening. There is no thing. There is no life away from this earth. We do not have that technology. There's no way anyone else could either. And I really think that the movie Contact was the closest that we've ever come to have had this conversation. There's been other things too. And Tom says UFOs could have been around much longer. UFOs were absolutely around much longer. We only took to the skies not long before this man was flying and saw them, but relatively speaking. But, the fact that they're depicted in ancient texts, they're depicted everywhere in Egypt, it's just astounding that we're only now having this conversation. Fate magazine is a large part of why that conversation happened. It's constant. It is constant in the topics of our editions. There is so much information that is shared. When I first took over this show, my first guest was the gentleman who is the curator at the Flatwoods Monster Museum. And Flatwood Monster was something I was not very familiar with. There were so many things given as the reasons and explanations for that experience. It was a paratrooper whose chute had gone over his shoulders, and he looked, so many BS answers for such an interesting situation. But that's one of the reasons that I am so proud of this magazine. When Phyllis asked me if I would like to take this show over, I was so flattered. And she didn't have a problem with me continuing Paranormal Experienced because I started that. That's mine. And I love doing it. And while the shows do dovetail a lot, what I do in my paranormal life is a little different from the research I do in my ufology work. So I think that it's really interesting to be able to do both. So when I go to conferences, I go as me representing both. And I'm fortunate enough to be credentialed for that. And when I first started going to them, I didn't have Fate yet. And when I started Fate, it just opened so many more doors because everybody is familiar with it. Everybody's familiar with the reputation of Phyllis. Um, and she and Rosemary Gully were like runaway horse thieves. I am not kidding. I will share something with you about that. But it's just an amazing opportunity to be able to research because every one of these magazines has information. And you can go back and get the archives. If you go back and you look, I was what was I doing? I had a guest, Cheryl Costa. I had a guest on who had written a story relevant to the possibility of Johnny Appleseed being a time loss phenomena. And so she wrote that and she submitted it to Fate. The first time I interviewed her, she said, well, I did this, I submitted it, I never got published, I never heard back. And so I was talking to Phyllis about it the next morning, and she was like, we did publish that. Let me send her some copies. She got copies made of that edition and sent them to Cheryl. Cheryl didn't even know she'd been published. So that was pretty cool. And, I found out as I was going through just the editions that I had, so I give them away a lot. But the editions that I have, I found, previous guests of mine, Dr. Raymond Moody, Richard Sennett. Richard Sennett is going to be coming back on. I love him. Y'all will too. Let me come through here and I will look at the contributors. And y'all will recognize a lot of these names with my great big specs again. Sorry. But Stevie Tombstone, y'all heard me mention Stevie. And he had written about Kraken legends. But Susan Swan, writing about Hawaiian self-healing. Wreck of the USS Contest by Don Sutherland. Richard, in this edition, wrote The Cursed Ring of Valentino. And again, that's the Kraken edition. If you go to fatemag.com, you'll see where you can order any of the editions that strike your fancy. You'll see a lot of them on the page. So you can just peruse fatemag.com, and it is really so much fun to go through these old things. Y'all will never see me touch this edition again because I am so paranoid about snakes. But this, to me, this covers everything. The ancient serpent, empires of Atlantis, and the Druids. And then you come to the contents, the features, and you're going to have again Oliva's Music Box Mystery, again by Richard Sennett. If you don't know who Richard Sennett is, Google him. And then we've got the Atlantis article by Marco M. Vigato. The Druids article is by John G. Hughes. There's so much information available in these. And, again, it's just really cool. It's just neat. And this one has an I See by the Papers section. It's just really goblin-like fetus buried in warehouse in Mexico. Sometimes I look at these things and I'm like, really, Phyllis? And it is always, yes, ma'am. So I think that's funny. Hey, Jeremy. So, this one has a Christian Ouija board game, sparks outrage among cleric and customers. Can't you just imagine? So, and then my worst nightmare, snake interferes with traffic switch at Virginia intersection. I would have sat at that light forever. No kidding, guys. But then, it's just so amazing. And this was after Phyllis's stroke, this edition was. And because it has where Meg Tobin had organized a fundraiser. But anyway, and it was a severe stroke. It was a severe I don't know how to, hemorrhagic stroke, huge brain bleed. And in fact, our friend Nick recently suffered a dual brain bleed. I don't know what is wrong with my enunciation tonight, and he is fortunate enough that he has gone home. So we are so excited. And Nick Muley, we love you here at the show. Think you're one of the best people on the planet, and I'm so glad that you got to go home. So, because I can't imagine being your mom. That would had to be so scary for her too, and she was right there with you. I'm so glad. So, anyway, something that I have found really interesting is that Phyllis publishes a lot of books, and she also sells a lot of books, even if it were for people that she didn't publish. And you can find that again at fatemag.com. One of the books that I actually have on order is called The Dolphin Ones. And you can look at the magazine, different editions. We have shirts. We have a singular shirt that has the Fate logo across the top of it. And mine has the Fate Magazine radio logo, I think, across the top of it. But yeah, there's stuff you can buy. I will tell you, oh my gosh, I don't have them with me. We have trading cards. We do. And it is so fun because, they're so cool. They are the different magazine covers. Okay. And since 1948, we have had a few covers. Okay. And I just love mine. I always have them. I'm always handing them out. I have my favorites that are in a little card, like a baseball card collector thing. It's so cool. But, and this is completely off topic talking about the magazines, but I just wanted to tell you, you can get, I want to say 100, a set of 50. Okay. A set of 50 for $12.99. And you're not going to find bad ones. I'm serious. And if you see me, grab me because I will have them with me. So it's my favorite thing. But we also right now have a holiday offer that if you buy the cards, I'm trying to get this right. If you buy the cards, you get a free full-sized issue. And I think that would be your pick of issue. So just something to know. But again, it's so special to be able to play with this stuff. I have been so fortunate. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in chat because it's very rare that I do a monologue show. It just is. Usually I wander off behind the little animals way before now, but I think that we're doing okay, mainly because the topic is so cool. But, I've been doing this show, and I'm not the first. My friend Chase Klosky was a host for a long time. Vance Pollock was a host for a long time. Todd Bates was a host for a short time because he's a crap person. And I don't say that, Todd. I'll tell you that. I tell him that to his face. It's okay. He was my producer at one time and he disappeared and he went to start a different radio network with my credit card. So we had some words about that, as did, the company that he tried to do it with. But anyway, and that's why I'm doing this, because when I started my own network, I went to Phyllis and I was like, look, I don't know who you're going to get, but when you do have your show going again, if you want to run it here, I will do it for you for free. No worries. Just get your feet back in the water. And that's when a couple of days later, she called me and offered me the opportunity to host Fate Magazine Radio. And so here I am. And like I said, I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate. I did not intend that because I never intended to host two shows. And it's just such a gift. Such a gift. And I can't see that. But the pyramids. Yes. Oh my gosh. Carl has got a graphic up that is beautiful. It's the angel fate. Ah, thank you. Yes. And he is just so brilliant. I can't even begin to tell you how brilliant Carl is. He has he has taught me so much. There's so much more that he has to. He doesn't have to, but he probably will because he just takes people along with him. And I'm so blessed and thankful for that. And I don't tell him that often enough. So between Phyllis Galdi and Carl Albertson, I have some very good friends in this world. Denise Pridemore, got Jeremy York here, and I just love our community. We're so fortunate. So, and I don't know. There's just something about people that have that in them. It's just a beautiful, special thing. And I don't know. I just when you have experiences, and y'all can all relate to this, when you have experiences with people that may not be the best person, um, or not the best person for you, and you still try to make that work, and you struggle to go out on your own when it doesn't, and then it's just a nice thing to have somebody who cares. We all get in that position, and when you find friends that you didn't even know were that involved, it's just like, wow, dude, you are an amazing human being. And I recognize that. I try to be that. And it's just so cool. It's like with Phyllis and her stroke, and you know, everybody is just like, oh my gosh, we have got to put all these things together. And I called her. I waited a little bit because I wanted her to get home. It was a really serious stroke. And she's fine now. But I called her and I'm like, well, I just wanted to let you know that you've been in my prayers. I've been thinking about you. I just wanted to know that you're okay. What can I do? I think that, and she's like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, her speech center was a little affected still. And she was like, but I have to go. My goat's out. And I'm like, you're chasing your goats? Really? And that's when I knew Phyllis was going to be okay, because those goats are the most loved, spoiled, rotten goats on the planet. And yes, she was having a lot of fun. And I was just reminded to tell people that now we are on Dark Realm TV on Roku. Yay! Thank you so much, Carl, for putting that in there. And one of the things that I think is so cool about that is that, again, Carl, right? And Jay Lynch. And I just blanked on his wife's name. I need help. Besides mentally. But I want to say Teresa, but I don't think that's right. It is Teresa. Thank you so much, because they're actually coming on with me the second Sunday of December. And it's just really, we've known each other online for, oh my word, I've done paranormal experience for 10 years, and I guess I've known them for 8 online. And I did not ever get to Pottstown to investigate with them, but we'll investigate together at some point. But so now, the Dark Realm TV network is part of Roku, and we are part of that network. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I hope that y'all will be too, because there's going to be some amazing shows on there. The Bill of Rights Network has their shows going up. We've got, I'm sure, things shows are going to be up there. And, there's a bunch of good shows relevant to these networks. I think that you're going to love all of them. I do. So I don't always get to watch all of them live, but I do watch them. So it's kind of fun. But I think that this is going to be such a special thing. This is such a community. And that's what created Fate Magazine. It's what created Fate Radio. It's what created the different topics, the species link, the books, the doolollies, the trading cards, everything that has evolved through this is so cool. I love my shirt. That's just me. I think most people do because I run into them sometimes around places. And I love the fact that I get to participate in UFO conversations. I do. I get to attend the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, which is my very favorite conference of that nature because it's all science related. I mean, there's not woo associated with that. And in order to be a partner or a serious science member there, you have to be PhD level education. And it's really funny because so many of the people that serve on their board and such are people that I have met of Alejandro Rojas, Mark D'Antonio. So many people I've interviewed and had a chance to spend time with through my interaction. I covered the first Alien Con as Fate Magazine. And, I have not yet done a MUFON symposium, but I've done the UFO Congress out in Phoenix. And there's so many people. And they don't just include science, they include experiencers. And something that I found is that these experiencer groups, they have counselors that specifically work with people who've had alien encounters. And I didn't really know that that was a thing until I started working with Fate, because so many people, when they find out that that's what I do, they have these experiences and they bring them to me to share. And they don't mind if I share them. I won't always give names, but a lot of the people have written books about their experiences that I talk to, and they come on or have come on to let that story out. I think that probably the experiencer side of this phenomenon is the side I relate to. Because when I was in 7th grade, there was something outside I saw a craft, and my dad was outside with us, and we were having a cookout, and there were 4 of the people that jump out of helicopters there. My dad was Special Forces Green Beret Airborne Division, pretty 181st. But anyway, and all of these men, I've been going to watch them jump my whole life. I saw something and it was just being still. I pointed it to him. I am. But Tom said, forget the men in black. You're the lady in white. Yeah, pretty much. But it's so much fun because my dad lied to me, because I saw this craft and I pointed it out and I was like, what is that? And they all looked at each other and they looked back at me and said, that's a helicopter. I was like, I've watched you jump out of helicopters. That is not a helicopter. And they were all like, why don't you go see if the potato salad's ready inside? So it was wild because that night, I'm in bed. My sister and I shared a room. She was over in her bed. I was in mine. And I was awakened by green and white and, lights that were moving in my room. And I was just like, I don't even want to know. And I just put the covers over my head because I was so afraid. And I didn't know what I was afraid of. But that was a sheer terror moment because my sister wasn't, and she was a light sleeper. If you sneezed, she was up. So I was just like, well, okay, this is different. So the next morning I got up and I told my dad about it. And he was like, oh, I'm sure that was just the police. I was like, it was green. I mean, why would the police be in our driveway? So, I had that experience and I don't know, I don't know. Was there lost time? I don't know. And have I had regression? Absolutely not. I don't see a reason to. But I have had experiences since then. But these are the people that are at these conferences who do know what happened to them, who do have implants, who do suffer greatly, who are afraid to go to sleep, who are kind of banished from their family groups because they came forward. And, I got to hear the audio tape of Barney Hill's regression. And if you don't believe that there's serious trauma attached to some of these experiences, well, there's not a cow in Texas. I'm serious. That man wasn't telling the truth. It was just so tragic. And that's one of the opportunities that I've had through fate. I don't know. Do I know what kind of people did that? I don't. Do I know that it's really interesting that aliens apparently were not able to work zippers at that period? I do. Hyperintelligence, abducting people, couldn't undo a zipper. Boggles the mind. So, it's just kind of an interesting thing. Excuse me. The whole point of doing this was to let people know about what Fate Magazine is. It's also to let people know why I feel like this is such a big deal. I've never been part of something quite this big. And I've had some pretty good gigs along the road because I'm old. So it's a lot of fun to me to sit around and ponder things. Well, my husband is the biggest ponderer. So I'm sitting at Barnes and Noble or somewhere, Second and Charles, and he comes up to me and he's like, oh, we're buying this. And I said, what is it? Well, it's called True Ghosts. Okay. And it's Haunting Tales from the Vaults of Fate magazine. I didn't even know this existed. Apparently, this isn't the only one. But it was written by a former assistant editor named Andrew Honigman. And there's a slew of stuff. I didn't even know we did this, right? So parts of sorry about these great big glasses, but I do like them when they're on. But ghostly apparitions, messages from the dead, dream visitations, near death and out-of-body experiences, haunted places, spirits helping the living, which is true, that happens. Animal spirits also happen. Lots of them in this house. Ghost encounters of children and encounters with child ghosts. That always makes me uncomfortable. Phantom vehicles and buildings. Vortexes, time slips, and portals to other dimensions. Past life memories, spirit guides, and angels. That's a pretty full spectrum, okay? Excuse me. So I'm especially interested in time slips, vortexes, and how did he phrase that? Other dimensions. But because I think that we've experienced those, I think almost everyone experiences that. And, I think that makes it an interesting thing. We all see you know, I'll see the like vintage photos that have someone in our period clothing or with our period devices. And are they photoshopped? Are some people making a mint of these things? Probably. Are they all photoshopped? And is somebody always making something off of that? I don't think so. I mean, I lived on the south side of Birmingham for a long time, which is a very eclectic community. It's very cool. It's very pretty. It wasn't quite as hip as it is now, but still very nice. And I used to walk home I went to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and I lived off campus a few blocks, and I would walk to and fro, ride my bike sometimes. But when I was walking, it seemed like, particularly around one of the areas, I would see people from different periods. Well, I didn't think very much about it. I thought, well, yeah, they're just gypsies. They're just, flower children. They're just random, like, but to be honest, the button hook boots and things like that were not a big thing. Nobody wore them. I would see people in them because I noticed shoes. But anyway, it was so interesting to me because I do think that there's a lot of that happens. And to recognize that I work with a group of people that believe in this, that support the research into this. Have I seen a man in black? I think I have. Have I seen spirits that I couldn't understand why they would be where they were? That's for sure. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot different, and it's so cool. And if you're a paranormal investigator, you know what I'm talking about. When we were at the Winchester house, that place was crazy, but the activity wasn't. It was just a lot of things happening. Lori, who is in chat, actually got a video of she was using her SLS camera, and there was what it looked like a dog trying to get through. They had windows in the floor in some of the parts. She was bored. She was doing anything to keep that activity going because she'd been told if the hammers and saws stopped, then so would she. So she kept building on that house. But anyway, so there is a SLS image that looks like a dog trying to claw its way through this window in the floor. And I'm just like, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. Well, it really was one of them. But I wanted to share with you, if you don't mind. So we're moving over. Oh, that's a Scottish book. That's a whole nother world. But, some of the things that I have been seeing about these little mummies in Mexico, about all the stuff, there's always something that is turning up. Yeah, Lori said there was someone dancing in the window too. That's true. But these strange creatures keep showing up. And that Akama, I believe it's Akama, mummy, has been ostensibly disproved, but there's more than one. So I don't think so, right? But this, smaller glasses, but this is something that is a drawing. And this is one of Stevie's articles about the Fiji mermaid. Looks a lot like that little mummy, except for the tail. Okay? So, there's the spine. And I wish that I had thought to get a copy of an image for that mummy. But it's just amazing. And this is called the Fiji mermaid, and it was in the Ripley's possession. So anybody people always, oh, well, no, there's no way there's mermaids. I am one part-time. Just kidding. But, when you start looking into all the weirdness, all the unusual stuff, all the whack-a-mole things, I mean, things just keep popping up, right? And it makes life so interesting when you're looking for that. This one, interacting with nature spirits. I think things like that are so important because I've actually worked a case where this woman was pot shotting fox from her porch, taxidermying them, and putting them in her home. And then she wanted us to come and investigate why she was having so much trouble with spirits in her house, the energy in her house. And that was one of those things that I'm like, I don't even have words for what you're doing. You are bringing all of the natural energy against you. You cannot, that's not fair. You don't do that. I don't have a problem with hunting. I do not. I don't have a problem with eating the results of hunting either. I am terrible with a rifle, great with a pistol, not so great with a rifle. So I let other people do that hunting. Not that I hunt with my gun, but I do defend with my gun. But, you've got UFOs and psychological warfare, Cold War manipulation. You've got the white bird. There's so much going on with all of these things. The Myrtles Plantation, which is a great Southern thing. This article is in the Mermaid edition, and it talks about the haunting at the Myrtles Plantation. If you've not been there, I haven't been there, but just about everybody I know does because it's in New Orleans. It's not far from me. And there's a child that comes and gets in bed. And one of my friends, Kevin Kane, had gone down there. He is a great author, brilliant paranormal author. He is a doll collector, and I've had some experiences with his dolls. And when we had an investigation with a mirror that had someone in it, he was willing to take that home and bind it to get it away from the client's home. So he did that. And it's really an interesting thing because I don't have any interest in having haunted items in my house. I have enough of them without meaning to, as some of us do. But when you have family heirlooms, that's what happens, right? And that's okay because they're family spirits. But when you start experiencing things that come in with you because you made bad decisions, then that's a whole nother experience. And that's one of the articles that I'm writing for the next, fate also. And that's something else I want to let y'all know. As I said before, fate is written by the readers. And I cannot tell you how many of my guests, especially the younger ones and the younger men, have come up in the middle of a conversation on the show and said, I love Fate magazine. It was mandatory reading in our bathroom my whole life. Well, because it's a digest size, right? Just like the Reader's Digest size. Information, good stories, good weird topics, things that make you go, So that's a lot of fun. But it was so funny. The first time somebody said that to me, I didn't really know what to say, which that's rare. It was so cool because it was a younger man. His name's Tim. He's pretty cool. And I just was blown away because when he was telling me the articles that he remembered, I had some of those magazines here and I was going back and reading them. So, the history with Fate is pretty cool. I get so tickled because I'm working on a research project, okay? And I'll show you mine. It's very pretty. But it's the Bell Project, okay? These are This is mine. It's gorgeous. I just love it. But I buy these by the case, and when I go to an event, I give them away. They're not quite as ornate, but I'm doing this because I know spirit manipulates things. If you've been a private investigator, you know. And the more simple it is, the more likely you are to get a result. And this is going to get my dogs fired up. But, you really don't have to do much. You can shake it, you can ding it. And the ones that I've been giving out, I just say the only reason, take one if you're going to use it, because I want to know if old school methods work better than some of the new stuff that I'm using. I have a lot of fun gadgets, but I don't think that every spirit's going to be interested in doing that. I think that some of them find them scary. I think that the noise that some of them make is annoying. It annoys me. I wouldn't want to use it. So I think that simplification is a good way to go. And so that's one of the things that I love about being a contributor for Fate, is that I'll be able to write this article about what I'm finding, about what the people are sharing with me. And good for you, Tom. Tom McNicholas said that he just bought 2 bells. I hope that you're going to have to let me know how that goes, please, sir, because I think that they are fantastic. And I do. I just buy a case before I go to every convention, and I hand them out, because where else am I going to find so many private ghost hunters, paranormal investigators in one place? If you see me and I still have bells, I'll give you one with my card. So you can email me or text me and let me know. And, I think that the most fun of being a paranormal investigator is when you do get interaction with the spirits. I was in Scotland for almost a month this year. It was off the chain. We went to so many places. We were in places that had never been investigated before. We were in places that had been investigated forever. We were in public buildings. We were in, old private buildings. A lot of them were national trust things that the government owns. And, I wish I'd had my bells with me. I didn't. But we were using dowsing rods. We were using newfangled stuff. We were doing all kinds of fun things. And one of the people with us, Mikey Thompson, you've seen him on the show, is one of the best tech guys on the planet. But he's so fantastic at explaining to people how to use this equipment. It's just like, if you just walk by it, it'll just light up. And by jingo, light, 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 light. And there's just all kinds of ways that you can do paranormal research and document it and share it and get it out there. I think that one of my favorite parts about being part of this show and this magazine is being able to have the access to people to say, let's work together. Let's go out and let's get something that we can find. It's the same thing with ufology. Fate is ufology. Fate started because of the Kenneth Arnold story. That was our cover photo. And Tom McNicholas says he doesn't believe in purchasing equipment for hundreds of dollars when you can do the basics. And I agree with him. I don't spend hundreds of dollars. I do have some stuff that I'm going to share. This is my trigger object. And if I can find it, there's all kinds of places around here. And because I'm a dog person. But I got this from my friend Gina Bingston. And Bob Christopher. And they own Vortex Ghost Gear. But this is handy and it works because I know people who have raggedy ends. I know people who have just plain old K2s and stuff. I'm a dog person. I will always have dogs. And so when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's mine. So far, so good. I've gotten good results with it, but I can't stand putting it in a box. So he just sits right over there. But I think that one of the things that matters the most is that it doesn't matter what tool you're bringing if it's what that person knows how to interact with or is interested in or wants to play with. So there's that. I think that, I think that anything that you do that works for you is going to work in paranormal investigation. And if you're not comfortable with it, they're not going to be comfortable with you. So there's that. And I also wanted to share because I didn't know anything about this stuff. And when I started going to UFO conferences and experiencing different mindsets, different thought processes, and beliefs, and all the things, I just was amazed. I was at Contact in the Desert out in Ocean Wells, California. Huge UFO conference. Very cool. Lots of experiencers, lots of big names in that field, lots of not so big names in that field, lots of opportunities to be exposed to different thoughts. Some of the people I had just read about. That was the first time I went there was the summer I got to hear Eric Von Daniken talk like 4 times that one summer. And every time was different. And it was such a blessing. But the coolest part was they had a crystal. Well, they had a vendor section. And there were crystals galore. There was all kinds of stuff. Well, I got this. And it is, I have to look the name up, but it is a Shungite pyramid. And it is so cleansing and it is so strong. And I keep this one on one side of my bed. I have another different type of pyramid that is crystals and copper and stuff made into it. And I learned that crystals really help. I didn't know. Well, come to find out that Phyllis had actually written a book on crystal cleansing. So when I was talking, came home and I'm so excited and I'm showing her all the stuff and telling her about all the stuff. And she was like, oh, I wrote a book on that. Okay. When I say Phyllis Galdi has done wonders and all kinds of things and has so much knowledge, I fully understand why so many people are so supportive of her personally, of her professionally, with Fate, with all the writing that she has done, with, all the things that she did with Rosemary Gully. It's just really a special opportunity to get to know her. And it's such a blessing. I never would have expected that this would be a real thing. And it is. And I just think it's nifty. But, I talked about the trading cards. I talked about the posters that you can get, talked about the shirts. But, all that's just stuff. What I think is the best thing is actually the education that you can get from this magazine. I know that sounds crazy. But it's true because every edition, I think that's the right word, but every month there's something different. Miraculous Healings, The Vast Venus Conspiracy. We've got Rosemary's books, Mysteries of the Afterlife, Slips in Space and Time and Space. And again, time slips, I didn't really talk about that very much, but time slips are something I just really believe they're real. I mean, how many times have you, as you're sitting there, you're zoned out in the doctor's office, or you're waiting around for somebody to show up, or you're doing whatever, and you just kind of drift away? Daydreaming is cool. I love doing that. But sometimes it's more than just daydreaming, I feel like. If you're I know that my friend Lori here in chat is on a journey within herself, and she is finding that there are all kinds of different ways of looking at things. She is she has just started working in crystal shops, and you know, I think that that's kind of fun. She is she is in a metamorphosis period, really, spiritually, and um, she's leveling up, as I say. And I think that's so cool because she's experiencing, she's learning, she's reading, she's listening, she's, you know, really getting into all of the different mindsets. And a lot of that for both of us has to do with our friend Shelley Burke Robertson, who owns the Old Paulding Jail. And she is very into creating holistic potions and things. And she's brilliant, and she shares. She's a great researcher. And it really is so much fun because that is one of the things that matter. You have to have a support group, I feel like, to bounce ideas off of. And that's what I think a lot of people read this magazine for too. There's so much random, fortune, off the wall, unexpected, psychic surgery. I was familiar with that, but I had no idea that it actually is a physical manifestation. I thought it was more like when you get a cleanse, when you're like an aura thing, cutting threads and cutting cords. I think that when I started learning more about it, this is something that really happens. It's very, very Hindu. Um, it's very bizarre. And I have seen with alternative medicine, I used to work for the American Cancer Society back when God was a child, and everything that was coming out of other cultures was, called quackery, and it was very derogatively treated. And it was interesting for me as I aged and started, still paying attention, to learn that the mind can heal you a lot. I've had friends who have had lumps disappear. I've had friends who have gone in to be treated to learn that they didn't need treatment. And you always need to follow medical advice on these things, because unless you've done that, you don't know what the outcome will be. Do I think faith has a lot to do with it? Absolutely it does, but so does communication. And most doctors will listen to a point. And if yours doesn't and you feel strongly enough, then you need to find one that will. But I think that when you consider all the things that the mind can do that we don't even tap into, I think it's interesting just to give it a thought. That's my take on that. But also, Lori and I were talking about intent. She's talking about intention in the chat room. And this, and I don't even know why she's out, this is one of my trouble dolls. And Trouble Dolls are why I'm here hosting Fate Magazine. I'm not kidding. Because when it was offered to me, I was told that the Trouble Dolls had been consulted and I was who they chose. And it was funny because I have my own set because when my daughter moved to New York, she sent me a set of Trouble Dolls so I wouldn't worry about her so much. So there's all kinds of stuff. But I have bookmarks in here, guys, because I wanted to share this so much. And that was something that I thought was interesting. This is again in the Kraken edition, and it's called Seeing Spirits. Heart, 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 heart. Glasses. Need some eyes. But it is relevant to Arthur Conan Doyle. And it's talking about from his journals, we can gather that Sherlock Holmes was work that he did quickly. Each took 1 week to write. So, it's really surprising because it's just kind of like when you're seeing spirits, you have things going on around you. But when you're like Doyle and you're writing, then if I'm writing and I'm writing well, it's because I'm inspired. Something has jumped out at me. Something is really getting my attention. I've got this to go with. And so I'm wondering, you should probably get that edition and find out why Seeing Spirits is relevant to Sherlock Holmes. And this edition also includes the top 10 UFO contactees of all time. And I'm sure probably you know most of them. But I am just always mesmerized because, you have people that are just the average person down the street. Betty and Barney Hill were just on their way home. Yeah, my friend Calvin Parker had just ducked out of work with a coworker to go fishing and had an experience that changed his life and not in the best way. And he was a very fine man, and I know that so many people miss him. He recently passed away, and he had the best bride, and she is a brilliant woman. But anyway, so you just don't know what you're going to run up on, or why it's going to happen to you, or what makes that person be an experiencer versus another. All of those things, I think, kind of make life interesting and keep you on your toes. So I had, excuse me, just a moment. I had lost my mark for, this was it. This is something that I have recently been experiencing a lot of. We have had 9 dogs. I have two here. And this is over a decade or more, probably 2 decades. But one of the articles in this mermaid edition is relevant to evidence for the soul of animals. And considering that the dog in question there looks just like my Kybug, I was obviously drawn to that. And, the willingness to be open to ideas is so important. I don't even know how people can walk without being open to new ideas. It's okay to get into your comfort zone, and it's okay to be so rigid, not okay. So I wanted to come here because you've got UFOs over Clayton, Georgia, for 6 months. And that's actually not been that long ago. That was in 2020. And one of my favorite researchers is up above there. And she's actually above Silva, North Carolina. And she covers things. It turned me on to all the stuff that was happening in Antarctica, where during the period right at the end of Obama's first term, going into his second, there were representatives of every world government going to Antarctica. And that really wasn't covered very much. But the website is called Starships Over Cashiers, Cashiers, Cashiers. And it is written by Mary Joyce. But one of the things that struck me about that, there were people from the Vatican that were there. None of this was hidden. Prince Harry was there. On the day of Obama's second inauguration, John Kerry was there as opposed to being at the inauguration. And I actually, before I read this blog, I had not thought about it, but I remembered thinking, how weird that Kerry isn't there for Obama. He was the Secretary of State. How can he not be there? And when you went to look at things, because you can use Google Earth to look down there, and there's all these things. I went to Lockheed Martin's website because that's who was doing the work there, and they were hiring. The requisite of you being able to go down there and work were that you didn't have any communication devices of your own, period. No cell phones, no iPads, no communication device at all. And you had to sign a non-disclosure, and you had to stay for 6 months. And I was just kind of like, be a good job, but why don't they want you talking to your family? It's illogical. So when Mary Joyce is conspiracy based, but she doesn't do anything without documentation. And when we were talking about this, and she's been on Fate, and she's been on Paranormal Experience too, that she is someone that is a peer of Phyllis. So this wasn't something that was happening in a vacuum. It wasn't in a void. Mary is very out there. So, not like out there, but very out in front of things. And she is the person who has talked about bases, military bases at Cherokee National Forest, at the park entrance, underground. And, I work up there, not far from the entrance to the park, when I'm doing my spook lights research. And it's called the Thomas Divide lights, and they're documented, not unlike the Brown Mountain lights, except to my knowledge, there have been no disappearances relevant to the Thomas Divide lights. My husband, when I started doing this research, thought that I might be a little nuts, but he wants to help, and he is that engineer brain side. So he went and got topography maps for me. I got all kinds of information relevant to what was at the point where these things would start, and then they would come across toward me. And I was definitely taken by surprise. I was videoing, and I had looked down to do something. And one of them, I was parked at the edge of the overlook, and there was a wall, and then there was a tree hanging off. And one of them was up by that tree. It had come all the way across to me. And I just, I was surprised. And I just said, that's a little too close. I don't know what you are. And it backed up. And I was like, it's responsive. Oh my gosh. So, that to me, I mean, I'm sorry. I get very excited when I have experiences that reflect that there's some intelligence that I'm interacting with. There's some maybe concern also, because I just am always amazed at the things that will interact with us if we give them half a chance. I didn't like it when it was in my house, got rid of that. That was very disconcerting. But when I'm out here, you know, I'm very careful. I don't get out of my car when I'm up there, because the last time I went up there in the middle of the night, um, not quite the middle of the night, but there was a boar that had 13 babies, and I don't want to be eaten by a boar, and they will. So I don't get out of my car, and but I do have a camera on open air looking out, and I do get things. So I think that again, is it swamp gas? Swamp gas does not have intelligence, and it doesn't respond to, please don't do that. Back away. That's too close. That's not a swamp gas thing. And I know that with Brown Mountain, a woman disappeared, her search party disappeared. People always think that there are train lights coming through there. They think that, well, the train tracks aren't there anymore, but they think maybe residual. I don't know why they think that. But with the Thomas Divide lights, there's not anything there. I've looked. And so it's really a fun thing. And I don't have the edition with me right now that has speak lights, as far as the great detail. But next time I do one of these shows, I will have that for you. But I think that one of the things that, I get a lot of people that are like, well, I didn't know Fate Magazine was still in publication. Well, we are. And you can subscribe. You can get your e-editions. You can do, contributing. We love great stories. And there's ways to do that. And if you want to, all you have to do is go right on over to Fate Mag, FATEMAG.com. And you will find the opportunity to subscribe. You will find the opportunity to submit. And, don't be afraid, because if it's something that you think is so bizarre, well, maybe it's very bizarre for you, but other people are experiencing it too. And I know that when I have a situation, I had something in my house and I didn't know what to do about it. So I started researching and found methodologies that I was comfortable with and that I didn't mind doing in my home. And it worked. But if other people hadn't put the information out there, then I might not have understood that, okay, this is how you do this. There's nothing dramatic. You just do it and it cleanses your home. Well, I'm sitting there thinking, demonologist. I need a demonologist. But it was not something that was to that level. And one of the things that I like about having this resource is that you can go and you can look and you can find information. If you have a question that you're not finding the information on, you can email. And I guarantee you that Phyllis, if it's been published in this magazine, will know the edition and she can help you to get that. I mean, it's just that good. She's just that good. And, I just find the knowledge base is astounding. Absolutely astounding. Like I said, she knew that article had been published. She knew what edition it was, what year it was, what the cover was. She knew everything about that magazine edition and the story that was in it that the author didn't even know was published. So that author got 2 copies. And I'm going to take a minute here because I'm looking for something specific that I wanted to share with you. And it's just, it's really touching because, like I said, Phyllis Galdi and Rosemary Galdi were the best of friends. They had history together. They were kind of two women in the wilderness for a long time. Wasn't exactly the norm for women like them to be out breaking ground like this. And yet, there they were. And I don't know how it feels to lose a friend that's that close. That's one of the few people in the world doing what I do. It's one of the few people in the world that understand me. I have those friends. One of them's in chat right now. But, it's really so special. And I know that she won't mind me sharing this because she shared it with us. And this is in the tattoo cover magazine. So I really wanted to close with this because when you're a woman doing 4TM research, it's very difficult sometimes. But I'm going to share this. And this is from your editor section. And it says, Departed Friend. Losing Rosemary Galdi last July was a huge shock to me and the rest of the world. It was not expected and totally not in our plans. I was very sad for quite a time and couldn't come to terms with this loss. Eventually, I had a session with Janice Carlson. Y'all will hear her at the beginning of the year. Our wonderful medium, and that brought peace and comfort. Much information came through validating the contact. When we first communicated with Rosemary, shortly after she passed into the spirit world, we asked if she had a message for fate readers. Her sense of humor was evident when she said, "Wish you were here." She was a card. And she said that she is available for answering questions regarding her books now that she has a broader understanding and even better perspective from the spirit side. The latest message from Rosemary for Fate readers is, don't let your political affiliations stop you from taking care of the climatic health of our planet. Janice Carlson related that another friend and departed colleague, David Godwin, meets Rosemary at least once a week for coffee or drinks. And they also watch movies together, mainly sci-fi. About once a month. They have a similar sense of humor. He says Rosemary has more friends in heaven than he does. Then he laughs. And it sounds like life goes on the same in the afterlife, just in a different frequency. Another message received directly from Rosemary is to be happy. Remember the happy times we shared and all the adventures we experienced through the years, from the East Coast at Gettysburg and other Civil War sites to the West Coast, hanging out with the Burroughs in Arizona, to Sedona, to Jerome, Arizona, to 4TM Caribbean cruises. We have had some grand times, and it's better to focus on those instead of being sad. We have her wonderful legacy of all the amazing books she has written, and we will continue to offer all the Fate compilations she has wisely arranged. And that, my friends, is Phyllis Galdi and Rosemary Galdi. So if you were ever going to be a fly on the wall with someone, they would have been the people. So, and I was lucky enough to do that once. So that was at that first conference. So, and I am going to be back at the Eureka Springs UFO conference. So if you want to run into me, that's a good place to start. That's going to be coming up before long. You can look that up. And I'm going to tell you, that is a small conference. There is a lot of interaction between the speakers and the attendees, and it's definitely fantastic. And not to mention, Eureka Springs, Arkansas is fantastic. If you fly into Bentonville and have transportation ready to get to Eureka Springs. It's quite a lift, but it's really fantastic. They have world level speakers. I've met Nick Pope there the first time we met, and yeah, that's where our friendship kind of began. And Mark D'Antonio as well. There's so many people, and they have such a great publishing company. So I think that you would absolutely benefit, if that's your color tea, to be able to go to that conference. I'm also planning to be out in California for some of the UFO conferences there. I don't anticipate doing any of the alien cons this year. So it's still kind of a fun thing. Yeah, I took Lori with me to the conference at Eureka Springs, and she said she was in awe. And she was. It's a great place to be. But anyway, I really, really enjoyed this show. I hope that you did too. I know that just me for an hour is probably a lot. For 2 hours might be too much. But I just really wanted to share this. I feel like a lot of people that I talk to are surprised that Fate Magazine is still in publication. It's never stopped. It's something that, is like every other month or so. And when Phyllis was down with her stroke, she came right back, and this thing was rolling. It's not a single person thing, although it is the pivot person thing. And I'm just so really fortunate to be able to be part of this. It's special. It's beautiful. It is it's been life-changing for me because I've learned so much. I've learned different techniques for my investigations. I've learned a lot about what to expect if I am trying to document UFOs. I have learned that even diehard rocket scientists read Fate. So that's a lot of fun. But mainly, I have learned that it's so terrific to be able to be here every week, represent Fate Magazine, but mainly get to talk with y'all. I think that I'm one of the luckiest women on the planet, and I love what I do. So if you have anything going on, if you'll let me know, I'll be glad to promote your events. If you have any questions for me, you can reach me at cat@fatemagradio.com, and I will be more than happy to answer them. If you need a direction in your research, I'll see if I can't help you with that too. And mainly, I just really appreciate every single one of you. Everybody in chat, it's been so great. And Lori, I would be lost without you. When we were talking about Shelley Burke Robertson earlier, Lori said Shelley has a great working knowledge, and that's of just about everything. Again, she is Shelley Burke Robertson. She is Old Pot in Jail. And if you have a spiritual, cleansing, pretty much any need paranormal related or herbology related, that's your go-to. You can find her on Facebook. She's brilliant. So I just think that that's a really great thing. Tom McNicholas, I'm glad that you've been here. April, I'm glad you were here too. And I think that, I don't know, I think that this is going to be such a great season, guys, because you know what? We are starting with this network. We're starting our Roku, and I am just thrilled, absolutely, to be doing that. It's just going to be, I don't know, it's just going to be off the chain. There's so many great shows that are going to be part of this. And I just want you to feel like this is something that is going to be your favorite. It's going to be a paranormal network. It's Dark Realm TV. And yeah, I will have Jay and Teresa on with me the second Sunday. So in December. So y'all come back too. We'll just be learning together, seeing things together, and just knocking it out of the park every time. And again, don't forget the Bill of Rights Network on Facebook, the Things Network on Facebook. Both of those, you will find so many shows, so much fun, and they are going to be part of the Dark Realm TV as well. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you again. And Carl Albertson, you are a hero. Thank you for your work. You do so much together. And, Denise and Ron Pridemore, all the people that have brought me here, I really love all of you. And you listeners, thank you so much. I guess viewers now. We're just moving right along, left and right, left and right. So thank you very much. Good night.